afternoon. My name is Randy. Sabine right here. Vincent. We're group 3. We're going over chapter 2. Identify your intent. All right. So these are some points that we're going over throughout the presentation. I'll be going over consider your general purpose, presenting and tell, sell, and interactive situations. Sabine will be going over result-oriented and audience-focused objectives, specific, measurable, and obtainable objectives, and Vincent will be closing off going over use your objectives, stay focused. All right, so consider your general purpose. Typically, there's 2 different presenters that you can possibly have throughout a presentation. You can have a speaker role or a facilitator role. The typical presentation, the presenter is usually in the speaker role. The presenter's main objective is to deliver the information to the audience. The second one is the facilitator. The facilitator wants to generate ideas from the group, and also he wants to encourage comment. He or she wants to encourage comments throughout the presentation. Typically, like I said, the speaker is one of the main positions that you can have in a presentation, and but where that comes in, you have a lot of control, but you lose a lot of audience interest. I mean, not interest, but involvement. So there's different situations that you can be in to gain more audience involvement or to lose more control, but you have to give up one or the other. So according to this graph, the tell situation, you have a lot of control, but you don't have a lot of audience involvement. And the further along you move down the graph, you see where join is the last one. You have a lot of audience involvement, but you don't have a lot of control over the presentation itself. All right, so these are situations that you can have throughout a presentation. You can have your tell situation. The tell situation emphasizes what, how, or who. And the speaker wants to deliver the content to inform the audience. An example of the tell situation is a presentation on a progress report, financial report, or a how-to. During the presentation, you want the audience to take in the information that you're giving them and for them to remember it. The general purpose for a tell situation might start with verbs like explain, review, inform, update, or share. An example of this would be share my vision to the company, or review the steps on the new computer systems procedures. In the tell situation, like I said, there's a lot of control, but not a lot of audience involvement. The next one is sell situation. Sell situation, you want to emphasize the why. You want to push change. An example of this would be like a Kirby salesman. They would come by, try to get you to change your mind on why do you need to buy this vacuum, this $1,000 vacuum, even though you can go buy one on Walmart for like $50. But their objective is to encourage you and to change your mind and persuade you on, hey, you should get this new product that we have. And that's the presentation, what sales situation and presentation is mainly about. You want to connect with them on an emotional level, because when you connect with them emotionally, usually they feel more trustworthiness in you. So you might be able to persuade them more and to go where you want them to go or buy what you want them to buy. The next situation is your consult and join, and this all falls under an umbrella of interaction situations. In these 2 situations, you're in more of a facilitator role. You have a lot more audience involvement, but less control of these situations. When the facilitator concentrates more on questions and answers, this is more of the consult situation. An example of this would be like a town hall meeting. The facilitator will stand up, give a few quick remarks, but then open the floor up for questions and concerns. And when this happens, the facilitator usually emphasizes the message that he's trying to give out to the audience in the replies to the questions that they ask. All right, the next one is the join situation. This is when you're trying to get information from the audience. An example of this would be generating ideas from the audience, or want critique options from them. In a joint situation, there's very little control, and there's a lot of audience involvement. And a lot of these situations, for example, might be like a brainstorming meeting, where you just open open it up for ideas, and you're trying to, and as the facilitator, you want to push the audience to give you more responses back.
So today I'm going over writing a presentation objective. So the first thing that I want to point out is result-oriented objective. So saying that before starting start writing your objective, you have to have a goal that you want to achieve for the presentation. At the end of the presentation, the audience will have to learn something from you. So for doing that, you can link the audience with the results by using some phrases like you can say, as a result of my presentation, the audience will be able to do this, or the audience will understand what I'm going through over the presentation. So before starting your presentation, you have to have a goal. So for let's say for our presentation, we are trying to emphasize what is your intent when you are doing a presentation. Going over, the next thing is when you're writing a presentation, it needs to be audience focused. And saying that you can link your result with the audience. So with doing that, you can keep the audience focused toward the presentation, and you can maintain the audience focus, and as a result of that, you can smoothly run presentation throughout the presentation. So for keeping the audience in your presentation, you can link that with your result, saying like, as a result of my presentation, the audience will be able to understand what is the intent of our presentation. Or you can make changes depending on the setting of your presentation. Let's say you are on a sales presentation. You can say that as a result of my sales page, the customer or the client will be able to understand more about the product or services that we are giving out. So the next thing that I want to point out when you're writing your presentation objective is your presentation objective needs to be specific, measurable, and attainable. It's saying that the specific, you have to have a specific idea before standing your audience. So you want to know what you are expecting from the audience so that you can convey the message that you are trying to give out to the audience easily. So that way you can run the presentation smoothly. The next thing is consider whether the target is measurable. So the target audience, it will be hard for us to understand what's the knowledge level or what the feeling or emotions that the audience is going through. But if you are using some target-based actions, then it will be easy to assess the audience, and that way you can assess yourself, and you can determine what you want to say and what you want to expect the audience to say throughout the presentation. And the next thing is choose attainable targets. Before starting writing your objectives, you might have a lot of lists that you want to go over, but it would be hard for the audience to keep attention if you are going over a lot of things. So you can critique each of them and rank upon their importance, and put those important things in your presentation and convey that with the audience, and that will help you to keep the audience focused, and you can run this presentation smoothly. Now I'll transfer to Vincent, and he will go over the next slide.
So you just learned how to write your objectives and the different types that you should use. So now you're going to learn when to write that objective. So obviously it usually comes in the early drafting process, right when you start thinking about your presentation. What do you want to focus on, right? So a way that I like to use that the book pointed out was creating your general purpose before the objective is created. That way you can kind of bounce ideas or brainstorm really and figure out what you want to focus on. A tool that's actually pretty useful that I didn't know about was mind maps. And it's really useful for random thinkers. Anybody who likes to, brainstorm ideas, you can collect and gather that information and synthesize it into the objective. And then once you have your objective, you might need to make modifications. There might be two different types of situations. You might have an audience that you're talking to that might include like a person from outside of a company, and you're supposed to give a company presentation over like financial statements, right? And so with that being said, those statements are pretty confidential. You wouldn't want somebody from the outside of the company to be able to hear that. So you might have to get rid of that information. second aspect might be a situation. You might be doing a presentation over like computer security. So there will be a computer virus that people don't know about that's pretty significant. You want to include that in your presentation and also tweak your objective just a little bit. So now you want to know how to use your objective. You should always consider your objective when you're doing your introduction and your closing. The reason why is because people usually remember the introduction of your presentation and the conclusion, right? That objective is able to bring everything together so that they can focus on what they need to know or what they need to draw from your presentation. It also highlights the message that you want to convey. Sabine talked about it a little bit. And so what that means is just your objective is able to highlight, what you want the audience to remember. Two key things that an objective helps you do is rehearse and prepare. And what I mean by that is if you ever feel like you're adding on time because you feel like your presentation may be a little short, that objective helps you stay focused in doing that, and also cutting down on time. There's a couple of things that we needed to cut down from our presentation because it didn't fit with our objective. And last but not least is evaluating your success with your objective. I might have a friend that I asked later on that saw this presentation, and I asked, how did your presentation go? And they'll say, oh yeah, you and your team look good up there, hopefully, right? But honestly, that doesn't mean that you were successful in your presentation. It just means that they were looking at you the whole time. But you want to be able to have them tell you what they learned from that presentation and what the objective was, at least. So evaluate your success in doing that with your objective. So now, just to close, we'll give you a summary of what we talked about today. So consider your general purpose, presenting the tell-cell interactive situation, and the different types of objectives you have: result-oriented and audience-focused, and then specific, measurable, and attainable. And then last but not least, using your objective to stay focused. So Sabine will go ahead and present the quiz questions to you.
Before we present the quiz questions, we forgot one main point, was that usually during a presentation, the audience, like you were saying, they remember the first part, they remember the last part, but a lot of they lose their attention when it comes to the middle of your presentation. So we just want to throw that in there.
Would one of you please read the quiz questions out loud too?
Going over the first one, what are the two main things that you can do to make your presentation more successful? The next one, presentation objectives should be specific, measurable, and blank. Third one, facilitators generate ideas from the blank. Fourth one, use objective to stay blank. And last one, what stage does the audience's base of attention?